Hey, you! Pokemon Unite can be harder than the backside of a flexing Machamp. But it doesn't have to be. My name is Fallout, and here are 17 tips and tricks to help you immediately improve at Pokemon Unite. Tip number 1, immediately turn on advanced controls. Pokemon Unite offers a ton of surprising customization. You'll probably be fine jumping in with the default settings, but why not optimize how you play? From the main menu, go ahead and hit X, then go all the way down to Settings on the bottom left, and from there pick Controls. With default controls, you're only able to attack nearby opposing Pokemon with the A button, but with advanced controls turned on, you can use A to attack nearby opposing Pokemon and B to attack near wild Pokemon. With that change, you have more control over who you're targeting with attacks in the middle of a busy fight. Maybe there's a weak wild Pokemon that you're trying to pick off and steal from a nearby enemy player. Tip number 2, turn boosted attack gauge on. Let me demonstrate with Snorlax. Every Pokemon has basic attacks, and every Pokemon has some kind of weaker attack before following up with a harder hitting basic attack. For Snorlax, he will punch 2 times, and then for his third attack, he will belly flop onto the enemy for big damage. Sometimes in Pokemon Unite, things can get really hectic on screen, but boosted attack gauge can help you keep track of what basic attack you're currently on. If you want, you can hold on to your stronger basic attack for a few seconds by dishing out 2 weaker ones in advance into thin air, and the boosted attack gauge will help you keep track of all of that better visually. Every attack you throw will show up on your gauge right under your Pokemon's health bar. Tip number 3, and this will be the last one related to your controls, turn your lock-on icon on. With your lock-on icon turned on, you get the following wheel that will pop up on the right-hand side of your screen in-game. Again, this is designed to help you be more efficient in combat. You'll find out sooner or later that fights in Pokemon Unite can get way out of hand really quickly, with multiple mons flipping and zooming all over the battlefield. Most of the time, you can easily manage who you want to target, but in the event that the screen is crowded with dudes, use the lock-on icon to manually target with your right joystick whichever player on the enemy team you think is a priority, just to really guarantee that your attacks will be thrown at that particular player. In certain battles, the lock-on icon has been a huge lifesaver for me and my team. Tip number 4, learn about special attack versus attack. I have no idea why Nintendo doesn't show this information immediately on the character screen, but every Pokemon in Pokemon Unite is classified as a physical attacker or a special attacker. Here is every Pokemon currently available in the game and whether they fall under the attack or special attack umbrella. Some Pokemon you think might fall under one umbrella, but they actually fall under another. Charizard and Cinderace both have a lot of projectile-based fire attacks, leading you to believe that they might be special attack Pokemon, but no, they are under the attack umbrella. It's really important to know right off the bat what stat your Pokemon relies on to attack, because later, when you're building to the strengths of your Pokemon with held items, this info is going to come in huge. That leads us to tip number 5, learn what items boost what stats. When you're in the in-game shop, looking at all the items you can pick up, the game only tells you a basic description of what each item does. However, a lot of items have inherent stat boosting abilities that you should really know about. From the main menu, hit X, go to Battle Prep and Held Items. Here you can go through each item you'll eventually acquire and it'll tell you the base stat value of each. Which items improve your attack versus which items improve your special attack. Some items improve your attack speed or your movement speed. It's all right there. And now that we know which Pokemon fall under the attack umbrella and the special attack umbrella, you can make more informed decisions about each of those items. For example, the Shell Bell. I originally bought it because I thought it would be a good pick for pretty much any Pokemon. Not true. It's designed specifically to help special attackers, meaning putting it on somebody like Snorlax wouldn't actually help you at all. Now that we're here looking at items, that brings us to tip number 6, upgrade your items. Just because you own an item doesn't mean you have the max value of that item. Individual items can be upgraded repeatedly to a maximum level of 20, and you need item enhancer tokens, which you can buy in the in-game store. It's really important that every time you get in-game rewards, you use those rewards to acquire item enhancers, which again, you then use to beef up the power of your items. Higher leveled items naturally are going to give better numeric buffs, and that's going to make your Pokemon perform way better in battle. All right, tip number 7, use the ability to look ahead on the map frequently. I know it's really easy to get tunnel vision when playing and only go where you feel the action is, but remember that you can use the camera to fly around the map. Did you just die in battle? Maybe quickly take that time to zoom your camera all around the map and get a refresher on where all the enemy players currently are and where all your homies are. When you pop back into the map, before flying out into the world for another battle, zoom the camera around. It's literally there to give you free information very quickly. Don't forget about using it. Tip number 8, always watch the mini-map. While you can look ahead on your in-game map frequently by flying the camera around, a lot of shorthand info can always be obtained by just looking at the mini-map. It can tell you when wild Pokemon have respawned, which is really important for XP farming. It can tell you when a goal is under attack. It can tell you which goals have been depleted. It can tell you when the incredibly important boss Pokemon pop in, which we will talk about a little bit later. TLDR, the minimap is vital. Do not ignore it. Tip number 9, go home. If you aren't using the return to home base at least a few times during the game, I can only imagine that you're doing something wrong. By hitting the down arrow on your controller, you can teleport back to your base. There is no shame in doing this. It is not a retreat. No, you aren't a coward. Teleporting back home every now and then is tactical and smart. Getting teleported home will immediately regen you to full health, and if you have any respawning teammates, you can use that feature to immediately regroup with them and bunch up to freshly conquer a lane together. If you're in a situation where you're being overwhelmed by the enemy as a lone player, rather than throw your life away, bail out of the situation and teleport home to heal. You're not going to win a 1v4 anyway when you're already weak. Might as well regroup, heal up, and push back with your team at full strength. Use the return home feature. It is incredibly underrated. If you're worried about going home, then having to rerun all the way back out to the middle of the map, don't worry about it. Tip number 10, use the damn jump pad. Another reason teleporting home shouldn't bother you at all is because the jump pad is at your home base and you can use it to immediately yeet your Pokemon deep back onto the map in the blink of an eye. Remember that the jump pad doesn't immediately become available at the beginning of each game, but in no time at all, it'll pop up and you can do the 1-2 combo of teleporting home to your base to heal, then jump on the jump pad right back out into the fight. Use the jump pad often. Tip number 11, learn how grass works. The tall grass in Pokemon Unite can save your life. It can also betray you if you don't know how it works. Stepping into the tall grass at any point will immediately cloak you from the enemy team. That's pretty great because you can use that to try and slink out undetected from a hot firefight when you're clearly outnumbered. If you're hidden in the grass, it's usually a perfect time to hit the down button on your controller and teleport back home to heal up. Remember though that while you are hidden in the tall grass, if any enemy is next to you in the grass, they'll be able to see you in there. So while you are hidden, you ain't invincible and you can be followed and you can be found in the grass. Try to be a little sneaky and crafty in the grass and use it to get away. Tip number 12, be familiar with manually aiming attacks. This one is big. As I just mentioned, you're probably gonna fight a lot of players who will occasionally try to pull a sneaky on you and bail out of fights via the tall grass. Locking on to hiding enemies becomes unreliable when mons have bailed way ahead of you into the grass, but if you have a dash attack or a projectile that you can aim manually, you can attack into the grass where you think the enemy is and disrupt them from teleporting home. If they're running from you, odds are they're probably pretty hurt, and with a proper well-aimed attack into the grass, you could polish off a weak enemy completely, which would be really huge. Tip number 13, remember that you can cancel attacks. There might be a time where you're chasing a weak enemy who gets picked off by a teammate of yours, which is great, but you might be in the middle of trying to aim an attack at a foe who is no longer there. So what do? Just release the attack because what else are you gonna do? Nah, just remember that if you're holding down any attack at all, you can easily cancel out of that attack by hitting the B button at any time. Don't let that attack go to waste. Tip number 14, know what buffs you get from wild Pokemon. Knocking out wild Pokemon is a key part of Pokemon Unite. You do it to XP farm so you can get stronger overall during the battle. Some wild Pokemon out there actually have hidden buffs that you could temporarily acquire after knocking them out. Right now there's only two, but they're important to understand: the blue buff and the orange buff. The blue buff you can get from knocking out a wild Ludicolo, the pineapple duck with the lily pad sombrero, something I never thought I would say out loud. Thank you, Nintendo. The blue buff gives you a small damage boost against wild Pokemon for a short time. Naturally, if you plan on jungling early on and farming wild Pokemon quickly for XP, choice target Ludicolo for that temporary extra damage buff on other wild Pokemans. The orange buff is the one you get from knocking out Buffalont. That buff will give all of your basic attacks the ability to slow down enemies on a hit. That can be really big later on. Knock out a Buffalont, then if you're fighting another enemy player who's trying to run away from you, they're gonna have a hard time doing that because again, your hits will now slow them down. Tip number 15, as long as we're talking about wild Pokemon, it is vital to know everything about boss Pokemon. During the match, you're going to occasionally notice yellow countdown timers on your minimap or a yellowish looking animal head symbol. That is the location of a wild boss Pokemon, and if you take it down, you and your team will get a big reward. The type of reward that you get depends on the type of boss Pokemon that you and your team just took down. Let's go through the 3 current boss types. Rotom, the electric ghost Pokemon, appears up at the very top of the map. When beaten, it'll give whoever dealt the final blow 20 points, and it'll move with you towards the nearest enemy goal. If you manage to help Rotom fight its way into that goal, then for the next 15 seconds, you and your team will be allowed to insta-dunk on that goal. That is very important because remember, your dunk animation will take longer the more points your Pokemon is carrying. So if you're holding on to 50 points, that'll be a really long dunk animation. But if Rotom has invaded the goal, you can insta-dunk anything you're carrying immediately. Awesome buff to have. The next boss Pokemon is Dreadnought. He appears at the bottom of the current map. When defeated, whoever dealt the final blow will get 20 points, and on top of that, you and your entire team will get a temporary overshield equal to about 15-ish% of your overall max health, no matter where you are on the map. The final boss Pokemon is Zapdos, who only appears once in the final 2 minutes of the game. Killing Zapdos is so unbelievably important because the buffs you get from taking it down are wildly good. When defeated, whoever got the final blow on Zapdos gets 30 points, but everyone else on your team will get 20. Between a full team of 5 people, that means for bringing down Zapdos, you get 110 points that you can now dunk into a nearby goal. Next, after beating Zapdos, all enemy goals will now allow you to insta-dunk any amount of points you might be carrying for the next 30 seconds. Finally, when defeated, Zapdos damages the enemy team with a quick lightning attack. But really, the 110 motes overall and the ability to insta-dunk for the next 30 seconds is probably the main pull. Remember that with all boss Pokemon, the only hit that matters is the final hit, meaning that technically if your team was almost entirely dead and the enemy team was wailing away on Zapdos, if you crept in and yoinked the final hit, your team would reap the entire benefit from bringing down Zapdos. Boss Pokemon are incredibly important to winning, so always keep an eye on them and do not ignore Zapdos. Tip number 16, be smart about scoring. In the final 2 minutes of the game, it's important to remember that any points you dunk will be doubled. Meaning that if maybe there's 2:05 left on the in-game clock and you're about to dunk a bomb, maybe wait that extra 5 seconds if you can afford to before jamming it home. Also, because Zapdos appears in the final 2 minutes of the game, and as I mentioned, gives your team 110 points for you to dunk anywhere immediately, it's actually 220 points on the table because again, everything you dunk in the final 2 minutes of the game is doubled. It's also important that you're keeping an eye on the number under any enemy goal. That shows you how much more you can dunk into that goal before it will inevitably break and you can no longer dunk there. There might be a few times where you have to convince your team to push with you a little harder into the enemy base if you have a couple people prepared to dunk, but an upcoming goal will break with one more dunk. Finally, tip number 17, learn multiple characters. It's only natural for you to eventually pick a favorite Pokemon in Pokemon Unite. You find a playstyle that works for you, everything clicks, you like what they bring to the table, you want to go all in on that Mon. Until you launch the game and somebody ganks that Pokemon before you have the option to pick them. That is literally inevitable. You won't get the character you want every time you play the game. And because that is inevitable, it means you really need to learn how to play multiple Pokemon fairly well. And that should be fine anyway, because what if your favorite Pokemon is Snorlax, and then when you launch up a game, your teammates pick 2 other defensive-based Pokemon? You're gonna pick a 3rd tank because you don't know how to play anything else? I mean, you can, but good players always have a backup plan. Try to master Pokemon of different playstyles. There's good mons in every category. Those categories being offense, defense, speedsters, support, and well-rounded, i.e. an offensive and defensive blend. There are tons of good Pokemon currently in Pokemon Unite, and if you're feeling unconfident, don't worry, my guy. You can literally hop into practice mode at any time and work on feeling out a new mon you want to get good with. Finally, hidden tip number 18, follow me on my Twitch channel. I stream games multiple days per week, and I would love to have you there to talk strategy or just hang out and vibe. If you learned anything from today's guide, please do me a favor and click the like button and share it with a friend or teammate that you're playing Pokemon Unite with. If you're new to the channel, do me a favor and click the subscribe button, and my greatest appreciation for those who do. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.